Welcome to Who's in STEM. I'm Ken Ono, your host and the STEM advisor to the Provost and the Marvin Rosenblum Professor of Mathematics at UVA. Our goal is to evoke flights of imagination and wonder by showcasing the cornucopia of all that is STEM at UVA, the marvelous world of UVA science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. Now, in a recent episode, we heard two stories from Bill Petrie, the chief of the Division of Infectious Diseases and International Health at UVA, and Katherine Thornton, retired astronaut and professor emerita at UVA School of Engineering. The episode was a recording of speeches, stories that both gave at Carr's Hill last spring as a partnership between UVA and the Story Collider. Who's in STEM has collaborated with the Story Collider for the past 3 years now, and this year we have an extra bonus story that we want to share. In this episode, you'll hear a different recording from that night, and it was with one of our previous guests on the show, Scott Acton, professor and chair of UVA's Department of Electrical and Computer Engineering.
I have a secret fantasy that I've never revealed to anyone before tonight. And my fantasy was to become a writer. I was born to a bookish family. My parents gave me books before they gave me a Slinky or green slime. Those are 70s toys, by the way. My parents named me after Scott Fitzgerald and my sister after Lady Bird Ashley, who was a character in The Sun Also Rises. And I had an accompanying dream. I wanted to become a writer. I wanted to become a novelist. I wanted to fly over the Serengeti, to chase German submarines, to befriend matadors, and to crank out masterpieces in French cafes. I wanted to be Ernest Hemingway. And going into the 8th grade, I found out that Mrs. Winifred Campbell was going to be my English teacher. And if your name is Winifred, you're going to be a tough teacher. That's facts. And Winifred Campbell was tough. We were quaking in our boots. I was perhaps a little more confident because I just told you I was going to become a professional writer. And I just aced the 7th grade. So when Winifred Campbell asked me for a poem, I gave her a book of poems on the Beatles. I illustrated it. I wrote it down on green crepe paper and 3-hole punched it and put it together with yarn. Winifred Campbell made that green book come back like Christmas because she bled all over it. One of the more salient comments that I'll never forget from Winifred Campbell was not worthy of the art form of Byron and Keats. A little harsh for the 8th grade, don't you think? Inside, perhaps a little fairer, was lacking rhyme, rhythm, and meter. I still don't know what meter is, but then she wrote C. And I thought, who tries really hard in middle school and gets a C? I did. Second assignment was a personal essay. And I had the perfect personal essay because I knew this guy, Duke, who had actually escaped from Vietnam at age 6. So I wrote about Duke, handed in this essay, and Winifred Campbell put on the cover, "Your personal essay is impersonal." I can't trust the narrator. So inside, another comment that I think I've passed on to my own students is, sentence run-ons and fragments will not be tolerated in this class. C. So my C in 8th grade English was in cement. I was going to be put in the normal English in high school. And my dreams of becoming a writer were, fading. Same time, my dad brings home this interesting toy, the Commodore PET. The Commodore PET was an early personal computer, and I started tinkering with it. I started playing with it. I programmed my first program, which was to organize my grades, including my C in English. It was called Grade Organizer, and I let my teachers actually use it, and somehow a local software company found out about it and told me, hey, spruce it up, write a manual, and we'll sell it. So I did, and they did, and it didn't make any money, but it really felt good to just have something that was good, that was outside the criticism of Winifred Campbell. Same software company told me there was a new computer coming out. It was called the Commodore 64. And the Commodore 64 would be the first mass-marketed personal computer. It would be sold in Toys R Us right next to Green Slime. And it was going to come out in the holidays. The only problem was there were no programs for it. So the software company asked me, could you make a video game for the Commodore 64? And I was totally intimidated because, think about it. Number one, how do you make a computer program for a computer that doesn't exist? And two, how do you make a video game if you've never made a video game? So I spent the summer, I spent the fall, I ignored my classes. I worked on this video game, and I called it Space Raider. And Space Raider was your typical 80s stuff. You fly around in a spaceship, you blow up other spaceships, you kill some aliens, you bust up some asteroids. And Space Raider was ready when the Commodore 64 came out at the holidays. And the most surprising thing is it made a ton of money. I was still getting royalty checks for Space Raider 8 years after that Christmas. It paid for college expenses, it paid for my first 2 cars, and it felt really good. And going into high school, I then became known as the computer guy. You know, it was a little restrictive to be the computer guy. It wasn't really what I wanted to be. But the options were in high school to be the computer guy or to be nothing, and I chose computer guy. So I got another chance in my love. I got into the AP English class in senior year. The teacher this time was Mrs. Leach, and I'm not making up that name. Mrs. Leach's first assignment was an essay on the book Quo Vadis. Quo Vadis is some book about ancient Rome. I didn't understand it. I didn't have ChatGPT to explain it. I didn't have Cliff Notes, so the young people, you can ask your parents what that is. I wrote a horrible essay. So Mrs. Leach was nice, though. She didn't write anything disparaging on my essay. She just wrote 2 words that sent a chill through my spine of anxiety. See me. So I went in to see Mrs. Leach, and she wasn't looking at my paper. She was looking at a different paper, and she shoved it over towards me and said, Scott, if you really want to know what we're looking for in this class at this level, read the essay of Martha Church. Martha Church wrote this essay on Schenkowitz, the author, and comparing him to a Renaissance painter. It's 5 pages, it's concise, it's beautiful. This is what we're looking for. Your essay shows that you don't have the preparation or, frankly, the skills to be in this class. And then she looked up and smiled at me and she says, but don't take it too hard because I hear you're really good at computers. So I was put in the computers bucket. I wasn't going to be in the writers bucket. And I took it. I took it well. I took it like the baseball player that sees the 3rd strike go by, and I walked away from the plate. I wasn't going to be a writer. I wasn't going to be Ernest Hemingway, and heck, I wasn't going to even be Martha Church. So I took the cash from Space Raider, went to college, got a degree in computer engineering, and I've never looked back. 3 decades in college, and I'm a professor who makes computers see with computer vision. Like any other professor, when I started out, I was working in the morning, I was working in the evening. Some of the professors here know what I'm talking about. My life didn't really slow down until my 2 sons were born, one of which is here. So when my sons were born, I felt like I had a little extra time, and I wrote a vignette about the academic life. And that vignette became a short story, which became a longer story, which became sort of a novella, which became an 80,000-word novel that I called Jefferson, Oklahoma. Now, Jefferson, Oklahoma was set in the Midwest. It had themes of Mormonism, love, science, murder, and, of course, computer vision. So I wanted to get some feedback on the novel, but I didn't really want to put myself out there. So I submitted it to a novel contest under a pseudonym. And then months later, I went out to the mailbox and opened an envelope, and there was a cheesy piece of paper printed on a laser printer that said that I had won in the new novelist category. And so that little piece of paper was probably worth 5 cents, but it couldn't have been worth any more to me. I mean, it was like somebody tapping me on the shoulder and saying, you wrote something good. And for the first time, I felt like I was a writer. I was a novelist. And all of a sudden, I was running with the bulls in Pamplona. I was closing down the Ritz in Paris. I was Ernest Hemingway. I'd lived my fantasy. So, after the contest, I've never shown the novel to another living soul. I think I know there's a Winifred Campbell out there who's ready to shoot it down, but she won't get the chance because I have my novel and I've lived my fantasy life.
That was a fascinating story by Scott. If you don't know him, he has a very long, distinguished career, both in industry and here at UVA, and actually even with a stint at the National Science Foundation, where he had a portfolio of important STEM projects in engineering. And a good friend I've known for several years as a leading engineer here at UVA. But who knew about his novella? It's particularly enjoyable to me to learn about these hidden, undiscovered STEM stories about people right here on campus that we work with. Many thanks to Misha Gujewski and Shane Hanlon. They've become good friends. They were the representatives for Story Collider who came to UVA to train our storytellers. Thanks to the entire Story Collider team for this ongoing collaboration. I hope this continues for years on. And I'm Ken Ono, STEM advisor to the Provost and the Marvin Rosenblum Professor of Mathematics, and you've been listening to Who's in STEM.
Who's in STEM is a production of WTJU 91.1 FM and the Office of the Provost at the University of Virginia. Who's in STEM is produced by Benjamin Larson, Katie Nichols, and Ria Verma. Our music is composed and performed by Robert Schneider and John Ferguson of Apples in Stereo. Follow us on Instagram, listen and subscribe to Who's in STEM on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. We'll be back soon with another conversation about scientific and technological innovation.